thank you very much for the introduction, and it's wonderful to be here today. I'm going to use a little bit of the time I have to tell you a little bit about me very briefly, so you understand my perspective and where I'm coming from. I am Director of Policy at the UK Publishers Association. I've been in this role for 3 weeks. Up until Christmas, I was General Counsel of Cambridge University Press, and I want to talk a little bit about the perspective that provides to publishers and to publishing on the issues that you're all discussing today. Cambridge University Press is the world's oldest publisher, founded in 1534 by the original Brexiteer, Henry VIII. And this means it is around a very long time before copyright existed, and so it's an organisation that understands being a publisher in both contexts. And also as an employee of the University of Cambridge, one of Europe's leading universities, the discussions we had internally about how to make this framework work for all parts of the academic community were long, very, very, very difficult at times, but we had a real interest in making it work for all the different communities. And so I want to bring some of that experience to bear today. But I also want to talk a little bit about Europe and European values and publishing values. I have a passport here. It is red, not blue. This means I am European. I have a business card which says that I'm a publisher, and the values of both, I think, are very related and very tied. We believe very much in free speech in this community. We believe very much in culture, knowledge, learning and research. We want to live in a community where we educate and inspire our young people. But also, we live in a community where a single market and trade has brought down barriers, has created understanding between communities, and has secured peace and prosperity throughout this continent. And as we all know, single markets and trade rely on property rights, and they rely very strongly on the rule of law. And in a polarized world that we find ourselves in, where people to our east are questioning whether we can have free trade but no free speech, and people to our west are questioning whether we can have free speech but with protectionism and less free trade, Europe has an opportunity to stand up for both and communicate its values at a very important time. But with rights comes responsibilities, and I hope that this is the second thing that we can agree on today. But what are the responsibilities of publishers? This is something that we hear politicians talking about frequently now in an age where we talk about online dissemination of content. What are they? Well, first and foremost, they are to encourage learning, and I will come back to that in a minute and why that's important. Secondly, they are to produce and maintain quality content, so make sure it's accurate, truthful, up-to-date, and useful for the purpose that it's required. Thirdly, at the core of our being is the provision of access, and enabling people to have access to content, to have access to knowledge, learning, research, for whatever purpose they need that content. But access is at our core. And fourthly, it's to be fair to the rights of others, whether that be to respect privacy, whether that to be respect via the laws of libel and people's reputation, or whether that be to respect their property rights. These are the core things that publishers believe in and respect. But what framework do we have to operate within? Well, we have copyright. The world's first Copyright Act in 1709, its full title was actually an act for the encouragement of learning. Copyright has been encouraging learning for over 300 years now. That is its core social purpose. It created private economic rights for a public and a social purpose, and it has been achieving that purpose continuously throughout that time. And when we're thinking about policy making in this area, we have to remember why it was created, what it was set out to do, and make sure that that core purpose continues. Of course, as publishers, we know there must be exceptions and limitations to copyright. We do not believe it's a perpetual monopoly right. We understand the role that exceptions play in achieving the social purpose of copyright and the rights that governments have given us to do our work. But they must be certain, and they must be carefully crafted, and they must allow us to achieve a balance. And of course, balance is at the heart of the question that we have here today, and the one that was posed to me. But balance of what? It is assuring a balance between use and access on the one hand, which is today's debate, but also the production and supply of quality content on the other. That is the true balance that we're seeking, because if we focus too much on use and access, we do not have the production and supply. So keeping those two things in balance is absolutely important. And I would also ask you to remember that exceptions do not remove cost. They do not make content free. They merely move it to another place. So if you make exceptions too broad and you make content free to a user, someone somewhere is paying to create and develop that content. There is no such thing as making it free. And the question we have to ask ourselves as a community and a society is, who should pay? Where should that cost sit? And this matters particularly for educational and academic works, because many discussions around exceptions rightly focus on academic and educational works and academic and educational publishing. But if you are an academic and an educational publisher, and the only purpose for which you invest and create your work, and the only market you have for that work is the academic and the educational space, and you are not able to charge for that, then how can you possibly employ people to create that content in the first place? This is very different from other content sectors where education may only be a partial part of their market and their use. But for academic and educational publishers and works, this is all that we have, and it is all that we do. In other words, if we create exceptions that are too broad, we jeopardize the creation and supply of the very thing that is most important to those people wanting those exceptions. So what is the way forward? Well, we have ongoing negotiations around the new law, but I would ask more broadly, both during that process and after, that we talk to each other more and we understand. That is why I'm here today in Brussels. I hope you all leave learning a little bit more about publishers, and I leave learning a little bit more about you. But let us work together to increase access and use and around licensing, with licensing and not legislation. Let us use technology to develop tools to find content better, and also its parents, to avoid the issue of orphan works. Let us cherish our creators and all who help them in the content industries. Let us support our teachers, inspire our children, fuel research, and create a better Europe. Because together we can tell Europe's story to the world. Je suis un éditeur, je suis une Européenne, je suis très fière des deux. Merci.